Welcome to the Tech Table and welcome to a quick peek at what we've been working on for 2015 and Premiere Pro. The first thing I want to start with is what we've been doing with the UI. The UI has needed an update for a while and we really wanted to take a hard look at what we could do to increase performance without changing too much of the UI to be a distraction. So if you take a quick look here, you'll see a before and an after. And as you can see with the after, it's really very similar. You know your way around. It's just a little cleaner, and frankly, the performance is actually way better. Now, where it really starts to change is what we call Task Oriented Workspaces. And with this, certain tools can behave certain ways depending on what workspace you're in. So tools will remember certain settings and things like that. And one of the things you'll see is a great new selection called Selection Follows Playhead, and I'll show you that in a minute. Now, another thing I want to talk about is touch. What do we do about touch? We're all using these technologies on our phones, on our tablets, and in some cases on laptops. We're really starting to investigate where can touch go. To me, it's really exciting, but at the same time, it can be really dangerous. Most editors are not going to use a touch interface to get in and try to noodle around. There's just things that you can't do. But for things like collaboration, it's really a pretty cool tool. And I've been playing with laptops like this new Dell M3800, and it's actually pretty cool. I mean, you've got, nice panels that can present themselves with touch, and it's been, pretty amazing. I have to admit, I was a little skeptical on touch at first, but I do find my left hand doing a lot of touching while my editing is happening sort of traditionally either with my right hand or with both hands. And it's actually been pretty cool. Now, another place we've really been working hard, and I think it's an area that's needed some attention, has been third-party I/O. So we've been working with companies like AJA, Matrox, and Blackmagic to make sure that these third-party devices, in this case, this I/O 4K for Thunderbolt, really perform well. So the companies are starting to work together to really look at performance. We're also expanding our format support for 2015, starting with Canon XF AVC, ProRes 444XQ, Panasonic 4K HS, updated RED formats, and so forth. You'll see other updates coming as well, but I just wanted to give you an idea of where we were going. So let's go ahead and jump on the Tech Table and take a quick look because there's some great things I want to show you. One of the first things you'll notice is the new welcome screen. Here you can take a look at getting started, tips and techniques, new features for those of you already familiar with Premiere Pro, as well as the new Create menu that allows you to access recent projects, get to your cloud settings, and even better, if you're a Premiere Clip user, you can go ahead and convert that project and get it ready for Premiere Pro. Let me show you how that works. So let's go ahead and launch Adobe Premiere Clip and take a quick tour. I've already got a project ready to go, so I'll go ahead and select my Oktoberfest project. And this is a collection of about 40 or 50 clips that I did last fall. And you can see I can start to go through here and select my particular clips. If I click on them, I'm presented with some normal tools that will allow me to trim in and out points. I can even rearrange these clips if I need to. I can add audio, fade in, fade out, basic things like that. I can even go in and add some looks if I need to and really start to enhance that video. The real power of this is combining it with the power of Premiere Pro. So I can select the Send to Premiere Pro button, and this will go ahead and sync this with my Creative Cloud folder, allowing me to continue the work back on my desktop. So let's take a look at that. So at this point, I'm going to go to the New section and click on Convert Premiere Clip Project. This will take me to my Creative Cloud folder and already open it to the correct folder. And you see I have two Premiere Clip projects there. One was just updated a few minutes ago. I'm going to click the down arrow here and I see my file that I need, Opening Day Oktoberfest. And I'm going to click on that. And that essentially is an XML file that will automatically import and locate the files and present me with the project so I can begin to work. So let's take a look at what actually came over. The first thing you'll notice is you're presented with your sequence with all your clips and your audio laid out exactly the way you would expect. I see my folders here with all my files intact, all of these synced to Creative Cloud. I see my sequence is ready to go. Again, this looks exactly like I would expect it to look. I can double click on any clip again to load it and retrim as necessary. Let's go ahead and play this back and see what it looks like. Again, it looks exactly like it did on my iPhone. This is a very unique workflow, and I encourage you to give it a try. There's nothing like shooting on your mobile phone that's with you all the time and have the confidence that you can rough cut, add a few treatments to that, sync it with Creative Cloud, and finish it on the desktop. As you'll see in this release, we're continuing to refine the editing workspace and the editing experience. One of my favorite new features to show is under the sequence menu, and its selection follows playhead. Now what this will actually do is as I move the playhead down the timeline, it will automatically select the clip as it comes in contact with the clip. This is a great feature when you're working with effects. You always make sure that you have the right clip selected. It's not something everybody would use all the time, which is why you have an option to turn it off. One of the biggest announcements that we're announcing with this product is a brand new way of working with color. So I'm going to go up to my work area and I'm going to click on the new color workspace. I'm going to go ahead and bring up my brand new Lumetri scopes. And as you'll see, I'm presented with a nice workspace, and I even have a whole new area over here under Lumetri Color. And for those of you that remember, Lumetri is the technology that's built into Adobe SpeedGrade and our foundation for fantastic color. One of the things you'll quickly see when you start to work with the new Lumetri Color panel is you'll see that it's all about being creative. And the first tab to open up is actually the Creative tab. So rather than present you with a generic picture, we actually present you with the picture where the playhead is actually parked. And from here, I can go ahead and select a look if I want to, or again, if you want to be creative, you can just sort of shift through these and try to figure out one that looks like maybe where you want to get started. So I'll go ahead and start with this one called Clean Punch HDR, and all I have to do is click on it and it automatically applies that to the scene. Now what I don't know at this point, as you can see my clip, is I might not want to start there. I want to see exactly what's happening inside of here. That looks a little too saturated to me, and I still have a lot of work to do there, but I want to end up on this shot. This is absolutely keyframeable, and I'll show you that in just a minute. But one of the things I really like to show off is when you go under the adjustments, you can start to work with familiar sliders. These are sliders that you might see in products like Adobe Lightroom and SpeedGrade. And again, they're all the same sort of intuitive sliders and controls that you're already accustomed to. So at this point, I might be able to bring down the saturation a bit, bring up the vibrance. Again, that's a little different for those of you guys that know how to work with vibrance and saturation. I can go to sharpen. This is all about being creative. So I can lay on the intensity a bit more, or I can back it down. I can also go up to the basic correction at this point, maybe look at my tone, and I'm presented with familiar controls again, like exposure. I've got shadows and I've got highlights, and my sky is completely blown out in this shot. So maybe I want to dial this down a bit and try to bring back that sky. I can try to lighten up the white a little bit, see what happens. Let's sort of up the blacks. I can also look at my new Lumetri scopes over here and see what that looks like. Now, one thing I might want to try to do is maybe increase my blues a little bit. Let's take a quick look at that. I'm going to go under my curves. I've got RGB curves. I can just go right to the blues and go ahead and select some of that out. That's a little bit too blue there for me. But again, it's all about being creative. Let's sort of dial some of that back under the green. That's already looking pretty good. Now we have another new hue saturation curve. This is actually one of my favorite. Let's say I want to pop out the reds a little bit. So if I click on the red, I'm presented with these 3 target points here. I'm going to go ahead and push those reds out a bit, and I can increase or decrease on this side of the reds or on this side to bring out the orange and the green a little bit. It's just a very, very easy and intuitive way to work. Again, if I want to continue to punch out that sky, I'll go back towards the blue and just pull this out a bit more, and you start to see this blue area starting to take over for me, and maybe I'll just sort of bring that out just a little bit more. So absolutely fantastic color. Now there's more to it than that, because we even give you professional controls like you might see in products like Adobe SpeedGrade. And again, these tools will be very, very familiar to you. To me, I like to jump in and look at some of the other effects that we've made available, like vignette. And I'm going to go ahead and just sort of create a vignette. Let me take the feather all the way down, and you'll start to sort of see this dark edge. Or again, you can change the amount of the vignette and you'll see it basically turns white. So I'll go ahead and dial this back to black and feather that in until I get that nice look that I want. I can change the roundness and the midpoint. So now I have a fairly decent effect. Let me go ahead and just wind this back a bit and just take a look as Devin's coming up to this scene and looking out this window. Pretty fantastic. Now to make that a little bit more dramatic, what I might want to do is click on this. Let's jump over to my effects controls. Let's start adding some keyframes. So you'll notice in this area here, a lot of the controls are keyframeable. So what I might want to do is put a keyframe here and dial down the saturation just a little bit at this point. And just as he starts to come up to the window here, I want to crank the saturation up, maybe back to 100, about maybe right here. I'll dial that back to 100, just like so. And let's take a look and see what that looks like. So at this point, I might want to take a look at this and slide this up a bit and say, well, I'd rather that not hit the saturation point till maybe he hits right here. And now I want to start to dial that saturation in a bit more. So I'll wind that back a little bit. And that really starts to have a nice impact. Again, it's all about being creative. Another one of my favorite features when I look at this, if I go back up and I look maybe back under my basic correction here and back to my tone, these sliders, depending on how large your monitor is and how much workspace you give to your sliders, sometimes they can be very hard to control. So one of the new features we've added is the ability to click in and then hit your up arrow or down arrow to dial in that effect. And I can tell you it's something I've wanted for a very long time. And with the new UI, engineering made it possible. So I can go ahead and hold down the Shift key and I can take that up by 10. Now I can also hold down another modifier key, the Command key on Mac and Control on Windows, and I can take this down by tenths on the other side. So again, you have great control over how you want to dial this color in or out in these controls. And by the way, this new hot selection with the arrow can really be used with any effect. A few other things to point out in the new Lumetri color panel, and that is you have the ability to apply an input LUT depending on which camera shot the video. For many workflows, this is a very critical starting point. You also have the ability to browse to use a LUT that you might have acquired in another way. You can export all of your segments as looks or cube. You can also share presets and even have advanced features like auto refreshing LUTs and looks, which really can affect a workflow on larger projects. The other thing I'll point out is the work that's been done on the Lumetri scopes that you just saw a minute ago. This is something that I've been pretty excited about. They just work fantastic. Again, these really look great. You also have the ability to select how many scopes you want to view, and all you have to do is just right mouse click and start to add or subtract scopes that you'd like to see added. Again, you just have this ability to come in here and turn them off, just like so. As you can see, the new scopes just look fantastic. One of the last areas where I'll talk about color actually involves a brand new panel that we have called Libraries. If you haven't seen this before, this is now available in Premiere Pro and After Effects. And this is where you can now access your looks and graphics via Creative Cloud, Adobe Stock assets. You can actually share assets between projects and team members across other Adobe applications for really easy access and collaboration. Here we're going to apply a look. Now I happen to have a folder called Skittles, and inside my Skittles folder on Creative Cloud, I have a look that I've named Skippy, the small child here. And if I right mouse click on that look, I can go ahead and apply that. Now before I do that, let me show you how I created that look, because it actually involves your mobile phone and it's pretty cool. This is a brand new project we've been working on called Project Candy. So let me go ahead and launch it and give you an idea what it'll do. The first thing you'll see on the welcome screen is it tells you you can use Adobe Candy to create colored looks for use in other Adobe applications. So I'm going to go ahead and click the plus button and select from my camera. Of course, I can select from my camera roll like I did a picture of my son there, or I could select one that's already on Creative Cloud, but I'm going to do something cooler, and that is use my camera. So I'm going to click on camera. You'll see I've got my old box of Premiere Pro 1.0 sitting here on my desk, and I just love the colors that are in here, and I just want to be able to select from some of those colors. What you're seeing here is you're actually seeing real 3D color. Think of it as color DNA. So I'm going to go ahead and just select that. And at this point, you'll see I'm presented with a target. And at this target that I can look at, I can go ahead and select the greens on the target. I can move this around and maybe select on some of these other colors. And I can even dial in the intensity up or down. But at this point, what I might want to be able to do is select that and say, okay, let me go ahead and put that up on Creative Cloud and call that Premiere 1.0 and say done. And I'll select that. Now let's go back and look at my library and see if it's there. And as you can see by looking at your screen, you see all three of them have now synced and they're available for me to use. Absolutely amazing and totally fun. Another great tool that we're introducing is a brand new tool called Morph. This is a very unique tool which is perfect when you're working on interviews, when you're on a lockdown shot with a still background and you're interviewing someone and they just lose their train of thought. Let's take a look at this clip and you'll see what I mean.
Place, like just so far, not even far from Annapolis, just in a place where it's always 5 o'clock.
So you can sort of see what I mean. And there's a lot of interviews that you have to edit where if this is the only shot, you somehow have to piece something together. And Morph is a great tool that actually makes a lot of this material usable. I will say that this tool takes a little bit of practice to understand what to look for on how to apply and set the effect. You can actually get some pretty interesting and even creative results, and the only way you can really figure it out is just to start to use it. So I'll show you some of the things that I've learned. First of all, I can look over here when my son goes into the interview and I can look for these areas where he starts to think. Obviously these areas where the waveform goes down. I'm going to move it to an area where I just want to go ahead and cut that out. So I'll grab the razor blade tool and I'll just go ahead and click into that. And I'll take this out a little bit further. I don't know, maybe over here. I can start to see it. This is an area where he started to remember what he wanted to say. So at this point, I'll just dial this back just a little bit because I want to have a little bit of room over here to make sure that when the effect is applied, it goes from no audio into no audio, and then you'll watch the morph happen. It works really great that way. So I'll go ahead and just click that. And at this point, I'll grab my pointer tool, select that, delete it, and I'll put those two clips together. And let's look at the result.
Such an amazing place. In a plate.
Now that's what's known as a jump cut, and that's what Morph is going to help us repair or fix. So I'm going to go ahead and just arrow through that so you can see that again. So you start to see the jump, and that's what we want to fix. So to do that, you're going to jump over to Effects and type in Morph, and then drag and drop that effect right between those two clips, and Premiere Pro is going to go ahead and analyze that background, much like you've seen in Warp Stabilizer. So let's go ahead and wind this back a bit and play that through.
In a place.
Actually looks pretty good. So I'll go ahead and just arrow through that again, back and forth. And you're looking right at that jump point. It's blended really, really nice. Again, that's where the morph happens. If I go in and I take this effect out, you can go back in and see where the clip jumps. Right there. You can sort of see his chest goes up and his chest goes down. And if I go ahead and undo that, you'll be able to compare once again.
In a place.
And that clip is now totally usable. Now, I'll be the first to admit that's a pretty easy example. So let me do one that's a little bit more complicated to show you that Morph Cut really does do some pretty amazing things. So I'm going to go ahead and just step back through this process, and I'll just make a couple of quick cuts and delete a clip out and then put the two together. Now let's go back and see what that looks like. Let's just wind that back. So his expression right there is completely different. So this is what we want to go ahead and look for. So let's go ahead and apply Morph Cut once again. Let it analyze that background and then play it back.
10 years. I just see myself.
That looks pretty good. I'll do it again.
10 years.
Now let's just step through that a bit slower so you can take a look at exactly what the morph is doing and applying to each clip. I should point out that you can adjust the size of the morph as well, depending on what you need to do. But I'll go ahead and just cut that out, and then you'll notice you start to see that jump. Absolutely fantastic. Welcome to Morph Cut. Another great feature that we have built into this release allows you to play with time in a different way, and we call this new feature Time Tuner, and it's designed for your exports. There's a lot of different uses for this sort of export that I'm about ready to show you, but one of the obvious ones are people that are in broadcast to where they might need to shorten up a piece of video, maybe to insert another TV commercial or something like that. Again, depending on what region you're in, you might find different uses for this. So one of the things to consider is how do we go ahead and modify time? Well, Premiere Pro and the new Time Tuner will actually go in and allow you to deliver content with the right duration without having to go in there and really micro edit down to the last detail. Just adjust the length of your video with this new awesome Adobe magic, and it will remove frames at scene changes in selections with still images or low visual activity or during quiet areas in the audio. Time Tuner is totally in tune with Media Encoder, which is all part of Premiere Pro. So let me show you how this works. So I'm going to go up to File, Export, Media. Click on my Effects tab, and here you've probably already seen you can apply looks or LUTs, image overlays, but there's a brand new setting here called Time Tuner, and you can go ahead and check this, and it tells you the length of your time. You can go right to duration change and just say, I want to change this by maybe -7%, or you can go in and say, I want to change the target duration for a particular target time and be able to dial that down. Absolutely amazing and really useful. This is also one of these tools you have to experiment with. In my use of this tool, I've seen anywhere from 5 to 7% look really, really good. As you start to approach higher than that, maybe closer to 10%, it actually gets a little noticeable that you're speeding it up. But again, it's a pretty cool way to deal with delivering content when duration is a big concern. While I'm here on the export panel, I want to go ahead and point out a new export format that we have, and that's JPEG 2K or JPEG 2000. This is something that our users have been asking us for a while. It also comes with a number of presets that you can use. And again, this has been long overdue, but you've got it now. I'll also take the time to point out a couple of other things where you'll see lots of different third parties offering exports as well. And here's a new one for WebMV, or also known as VP9, that a third party's done, and that you can download. I'll put that in the comment section so you can see how to download this. But you'll start to see other formats from third parties like H.265 and so on. It just shows how great the Premiere Pro ecosystem has grown. Another area that our users have been asking for is expanded closed captioning support, or getting ready for different types of caption support. And one of those areas is having the ability to burn in captions on export. So let me show you how this works. If you're not familiar with how to create captions, it's really easy. I'm just going to go File, New Caption. Go ahead and select the format that I want. I'll go ahead and set it to 708. Click OK. I'm going to drag this caption right where I want it. I'll double click on the caption and that'll open up the caption window. And from here, I'll just go ahead and apply my text. Now I just need to go to my button editor on my program monitor and tell it that I want the ability to see closed captions, and I'll select the closed caption, and you see the closed captions walk up. Now you can have different options here, so if you come in here and you select this, you can decide what you want the background color to be. So if you want the background color, say, to be transparent, then just go ahead and select transparent, and it starts to look more like a subtitle, if you will. So you have a little bit of control. Let's go ahead and export that and go under Captions and select Export Options, and you see you have a brand new option to burn that caption in. Another great feature to show is what we've done with raw material like this R3D file from a Red Dragon, and that's the ability to go to the effects controls and actually use the master clip effects to control things like source settings. So this is really cool because this now presents me with things like resetting your parameters on each of those. So let me just give you a quick idea how some of this might work. I'm going to go down and turn this maybe to a Rec 709, take my ISO down to maybe 400, darken that up a little bit. And let's go down maybe and adjust the saturation just a little bit, and I'll dial this up. Again, I can use my up and down arrows, or I can just use the sliders here. I'll just sort of take it out to an extreme, sort of brighten that up a little bit. What I'll do is I'll go down and sort of bring out some of those blues, and just like you saw before, I'm presented with a very familiar curve setting, and let's just go ahead and push that blue up just a little bit, and maybe just dial it back down so I don't take away all my greens. And that's already a pretty great looking clip there. And I can go up here and I can reset any of these parameters that I need to, as well as turn that master clip effect off. Again, it's a red source setting, all the settings that you're already familiar with. Another area that users have asked us to take a closer look at and make a little easier to use is audio, in dealing with how we map audio and set up audio channels and so forth. So if I come over here in my project window and I right mouse click on Modify Audio Channels, you'll see I'm presented with a brand new Modify Clip window. And here I can go ahead and select right or left channels. In many cases, my left channel might be mono, but I want it to come out as a stereo pair, so I can go ahead and set those on left and right. That's really easy to do. If I want to deal with 5.1, I can come over here and map these out any particular way. It's really clear on what's going left and what's going right. And of course, you can go down to adaptive and take a look at all 32 channels. Go ahead and change your active channels per clip and so forth, and have a really easier time setting this up. Another thing users have been asking us for is an easier way to deal with voiceovers and to make it a little bit more apparent. I'm going to go over to voiceover, and you'll see it's already reading my microphone, and you'll see I can select the source of the microphone. I can go ahead and set a countdown sound cue, as well as a pre-roll and a post-roll. Really, really easy to do and very intuitive interface for doing voiceovers now. While we're on the topic of audio, I should go ahead and point out that we've had a lot of requests from users that also work with digital audio workstations and tools like Adobe Audition and Pro Tools that require enhanced exports with formats like AAF. And I'm happy to report that we've done a lot of work in this area, and we're anxious to hear how it's working for you. Thanks for taking a quick peek at what we've got coming out in 2015, and there's a lot more to come. Thanks for watching the Tech Table.